Oh my god, hi. Hello. Hello. I have cat. Yeah, nej. Se på kamera. Kito. He's so pretty. Yeah. I gotta go. Oh, put him outside. Oh, okay. Hi. Hello. How's everyone doing? So many cuties. Thank you, Abby, for the follow. But yeah, damn, Bytes beating my PB by like what, like 3 minutes? I'm like, no, my PB. So need to beat Bytes again. That's my goal. uh, but yeah, how are you all? I'm pretty good. I've been um I've been getting through like an Unreal Engine 5 course all day pretty much. And there's been so much theory, so much, and I'm sitting here like, I just want to do the things so I can learn some stuff. So I can use it on like Saturday and things. But like I understand that theory is important, so get it back so he can destroy it again. I don't want him to destroy it again. The what I want is to go up against Bytes in the tournament and absolutely beat him. That is what I want. Destroy him in the tournament. So that's my ultimate goal at the moment. It's so good. Oh, it wasn't set to shuffle. That's why it's just going through it. Red. Red. Yeah, so I have done some like practice here and there. I feel like my movement is I'm getting pretty like down on my movement again. I'm able to do crouch kicks and stuff consistently now too. So now it's really just like being consistent, right? That's the thing that I need to do. I need to be consistent and get the times that I want to get, you know. I don't know what was my. Let me open up live split. Is the music loud? I can probably turn it down a bit. Probably more like that. Open split. Any percent. Yeah, so this is comparing against, yeah. So, apparently I don't have my old splits, like the one that I had my PB in, unless I didn't use sub splits for that PB. I do have an any percent one here. Yeah, this is the one. This means falling off the wall often, but when I do go fast, I go really fast. Hell yeah. Hi, Glint. What are you mad about? Hi, Iron. Hello. You're a shard. I know I haven't fixed it. Like 20% success rate with the crotch kicks. Oh, so many cuties today. Oh my god. Oh my god. Um. Oh, that's funny. I guess I began editing my any percent splits to also have subsplits. Um. Yeah, I'm just gonna ignore this one. But my sum of best from that time is a 125.32. That's from before crouch kicks. So I can do it. I can beat Bytez maybe at some point. Cyberpunk music. Yeah. Oh, but it's so good. It's so good. So good, but it hits you. It does hit you. Um so yeah, I just wanna like say some things too. The game dev stuff on Saturday went really well. I am super excited to continue with it. And for anyone that didn't catch it, I will be doing that every Saturday. Most likely at like 9 p.m. Central European time every Saturday. Maybe 8. It depends a bit on if I'm working that day or not, or like what I'm up to, you know. Um so I'm excited for this Saturday. We'll get started actually making like the game and stuff. And I'm like blasting through some Unreal Engine 5 courses right now. Just to like absorb as much knowledge as I can before that. So it's kind of like so I don't like sit here and like feel like I'm googling the easiest things, you know? Oh my god. Is that Fizzy? Hello. Hi, how's it going? But yeah, no, I'm super excited. I am excited. Yeah, very rare. How's it going? How are you doing? I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to thank you, Fizzy, for helping me like make uh or help me understand how to make splitters and stuff. Cause that like I don't know. I've been having so much fun with coding the past few months, so thank you for helping me get into that. TF2 gaming, let's go. Making a Risk of Rain mod. Ooh, what kind of mod? Okay, I'm gonna stop looking at that. I'm gonna stop looking at that. Um, put that over there. Movement stuff for Artificer. Ooh, exciting. No, I have to thank Fissy for teaching you how to make auto splitters for all the games around. It's true. I guess. Uh, yeah. What did I live split? Yeah, I made one for Wavetail. Did a lot to the It Takes Two one, and then of course Dragon Age, and that's it. Sick. Very cool. Okay, I'm gonna get started. With some practice. I need my inputs. That's all I need, right? Yeah. I should also turn on game sound. This is loud enough. Let's see. Just gonna pause the timer so it doesn't do anything right now. No. Yeah, I'm so excited for you to begin playing this game too. Dude, I'm so excited for my It Takes Two homies to come join Titanfall. Okay, I'm clearly very bad right now. Yep. I can tell that I haven't played Titanfall in a few days. It's like no speed. Also, why is it back here? Just make a quick save here. Is that no board? No. This is the OBS input overlay. And I've made this myself. I've actually made a few different ones that I use. I haven't uploaded this one yet, but I made like one for Dragon Age, one for Wavetail, and then one for Solar Ash. I'm gonna upload my Titanfall one as well soon-ish. But yeah, they're very cool. I guess I can thank Glint there for getting me into making like custom input overlays. It's just like, it's such a like feels good, right? When it like kind of matches the vibe of the game kind of deal. So Woo! That's you. It is. I'm gonna have to use this one. Myself. I'm sorry, try. Ooh, that like everyone should use. Ooh, oh, that's cool. Yeah, because that would be cool. Because like, I would actually, like, that's one of the things, right? It would be cool to like place it like above where the guns are or something. But then it annoys me that it doesn't follow it, right? Because it like moves around on the HUD. But yeah. But that would be sick. If you add something like that, that would be really cool. Sure. I have to say, my performance is way worse now that I'm streaming it. Oh god. Yeah, not excited for the tournament nerves for Mach 3 March. I don't know how I'm gonna avoid that. No. Lem strafing. Oh god. Dude, I remember. Yeah, no, because my hand was shaking so bad. I was like. Wait, hold on. Is that uh there's still videos up from it, right? I'm not sure if because I see there's highlight videos, but I'm assuming that's kind of just like the best of. I don't know if the entire thing is saved somewhere.
So much worse. That literally could have been so much worse. Not a. Oh, okay. I think that a lot of just going to jeans. Who has them? The gamer jeans that we know. You like. This is close. 80.
Yeah, no clue if I'm in any of these.
Speed, but it doesn't really matter. Tough. That's not going to be enough with that setup time. I don't think, though. Unfortunately, because we can. Both players performing incredibly. Okay. Oh. 360 swag for Potato. They've already won. They've already won in my heart. Let's go. Me too. This was. Yeah. Embarrassing. Competing for the top. No.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not. Wow.
Yeah. No, but yeah, no, it was bad. It was bad. For anyone that watched it, it was like this constantly because I just couldn't stop shaking. Which was absolutely absurd cuz like, you know, I've done like my GDQ runs. And yeah, I was nervous, but then it was like, you know, it was fine within the first 5 minutes. But for the tournament, it just didn't stop. It didn't stop. No. I'm being like, bruh. Oh, no, because End of Abyss 1, I had like recently, I think before the tournament, I was doing the Abyss 1 IL a lot. And just muscle memory kicked in and I did the frag strat, I think. Right? Wildest stuff. Goal this year, not shake. No shaking. That's cool. Too bad I didn't keep it. Oops.
航路连通成功，风扇已关闭，电弧装置距离30公尺。做得好，体育，你已获得电弧装置，返回控制室，系统已准备重启。
Have to get world record, that's true. That's true. What else? How difficult is this run to learn? It's not like, it's not super hard because there's a lot of like easier strats that you can do for like a lot of the sections, right? I suppose most of it is just like, hey, learn the route. Yeah. Learn the route and then like you'll get movement stuff down the more you do it. Yeah. easy, easy to learn but hard to master. Yeah. So there is gonna be a tournament in March, so definitely recommend joining that. I joined both tournaments so far, I think. Yeah. And it's been a ton of fun each time, so. I'm gonna get another get another It Takes Two people here. Yes, please. Get all of the It Takes Two Discord to join. Ooh. It's not good. Oh. Cool. There we go. That was my green screen. That's all. Infiltrate Titanfall 2 and then get those people to Takes Two. Yes. Yep. Ooh, oh, okay. That was yeah, no, it's it reaches this far. Try this far and cover all of this. Holy shit, I have not done that with that much speed before. Oh yeah, for any It Takes Two people that's here. I told Glint a bit about this, but I looked a bit into it, and it's totally possible to make like an It Takes Two task. It's like I can set like actions and stuff directly in code, right? So definitely possible. No, I forgot to tap stream. It would just be a lot of tedious work, is what it would be. But I was thinking of just making like a simple proof of concept one for like Wake Up Call, since very short segment. Double the butt, yes. Jesus Christ. I might need to turn down my mouse sensitivity even further. No, I didn't land.
相信我。
I think I might have to do that actually. Unless maybe I've messed up my actual mouse sense, not like in-game one, because I'm not sure. Oh no! Is this more like it? Well, let me double check. Right, I think I want it here. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, it was, my sensitivity was already a bit too high. That's why I feel like things wasn't working as they were supposed to.
相信我。
Hi, Robert. Hello. Thank you. It's just gonna be a lot of me practicing and doing things, and I don't know what I was thinking. Nice. Nice checkpoint.
相信我。 发现连线锁定模组，检查抬头显示。所有保全单位，我是李赫特，马上到信号台。Finding Titanfall will last me nicht hängen。准备进攻目标所在的信号台。Ja, ist recht。在体育潜入信号台，战斗塔全靠你了。
Okay. Am I not hitting the triggers? That what's getting me these bad checkpoints, or am I just unlucky? Oh, this is bad. That's not happening. Sound coming out of one headphone.
相信我。
when are you getting it fixed? Good.
相信我。
Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Sure. Nope. Rip. Don't think I have warranty anymore since it's been 2 years. No. Interesting. These checkpoints are bad. Yeah, whatever. That's nice. Let's go. No. That felt like that definitely avoided the trigger, but whatever, we're gonna see.
发现连线锁定模组，检查抬头显示。所有保全单位，我是李赫特，马上到信号台。
I need to wait a bit more.
检查抬头显示。所有保全单位，我是李赫特，马上到信号台。Finding Kleinman will last me nicht hängen。所有单位 K4 没有回应，准备进攻目标所在的信号台4号。
Sure, but
检查抬头显示。所有保全单位，我是李赫特，马上到信号台。Finding Kleinman will last me nicht hängen。所有单位 K4 没有回应，准备进攻目标所在的信号台4号。
there we go, that's way better. As long as I don't, you know, go that far.
检查抬头显示。所有保全单位，我是李赫特，马上到信号台。Finding Kleinman will last me nicht hängen。所有单位 K4 没有回应，准备进攻目标所在的信号台4号。信号台4号购台上的小队已阵亡，铁玉可能上。
Okay, a bit faster than that.
检查抬头显示。所有保全单位，我是李赫特，马上到信号台。Finding Kleinman will last me nicht hängen。所有单位 K4 没有回应，准备进攻目标所在的信号台4号。信号台4号购台上的小队已阵亡，可能是要从那里发送信号。收到。检查抬头显示。
I don't know why I'm struggling so much with this right now. But it is whatever.
所有单位 K4 没有回应，准备进攻目标所在的信号台4号。信号台4号购台上的小队已阵亡，铁玉可能是要从那里发送信号。收到。Z1
Nice.
K1 进军 A2，快让士兵着陆，快点。收到。检查抬头显示。所有保全单位，我是李赫特，马上到信号台。Finding Kleinman will last me nicht hängen。所有单位 K4 没有回应，准备进攻目标所在的信号台4号。信号台4号购台上的小队已阵亡，铁玉可能是要从那里发送信号。收到。Z1 K1 进军 A2，快让士兵着陆，快点。收到，就位于信号台4号购台处，等待拦截。
Cool.
铁玉模组位于天线的。
I'm just trying to go through this section 2. I don't know. Something I need to learn is doing the thing like from up there. All I know is this one.
任务更新，获得连线模组，我们等你回来，库珀。
注意进入维修模式。
Not that that gave me anything.
A21回报 ，Citroën，kommen rein，was zum Teufel？
Nice. No.
我建议先保护此区域，再进行维修。将控制转给地狱。好想法。
Okay, it's whatever. It's something I'll practice like as I get to it, more into it. I just need to go through some basic like full game runs right now. Gonna go through some more things though before I start my full game run, but yeah, I kind of just need to like practice. Practice is what I need. A bit early, maybe.
已歼灭所有敌人，区域安全。没事吧，铁玉？协议2，任务更新，替。
Let's just go through this once.
去掩护铁玉，我们把这座墙拆了。能去反攻后台，集结内心反攻后台，否则无法再接近内商船了。
在蓝雀山中，我的指示方都准备好。
布里格处指挥官，自由开火，射击！
知道，我们的反应不稳，需要更换地区。
有个方案，泰坦来了，给他们来个迎头痛击，继续前进。09号，请回答。继续前进。
来他们，上！
继续前进，内商船随时会起飞。04号，立刻到前方。
警告！警告！
想用核心，04号，快到地下入口。上。特异攻击。
It's not yet.
敌方泰坦到地。
铁玉，跟我来。进入隧道。射得好，护国铁玉，继续努力。04号，快点2号，这个区域漂亮的击杀比率，继续警告 BT，护国铁玉，跟我来，走吧 ，IFC 泰坦在前面，快快快！快赶在船起飞前登机。
I haven't looked into any other strats here.
快走！
要去哪儿？有我在，你想都别想。
What's a no? Super easy. Okay. Will do. Then she's gonna follow. Ah, she's gonna fight. Just didn't know where the trigger is.
跟我来
Makes sense.
前面有个电梯。过来，铁玉，跟着我，来吧，铁玉预备。
Code! Robert found that. Ah, cool.
简单的部分结束了。
Cool.
证书了。赶快解决，然后回家。他在那里，时间还够，可以拦截盛会。
What do you mean, code? You're the one that doesn't love me anymore. Hello? Fuck you. I never respond. I'm sorry. A lot of the time I'm just lurking.
最后检查完成，所有系统正常。他们要走了，我们得拿下那艘船，也让他们逃了，到那边的坡道。
I think guy's a bitch.
是会朝你那去了，我让毒蛇接手了，待会见。
Try's pretty cute. Okay. Let me go back. Let me...
Alright, what's up? It's Bladen. We're on to Trial by Fire. Gonna start off with a cutscene here. I'm gonna fast forward through this just a little bit. So the start of this mission is basically just an escort mission in disguise. We're gonna be escorting Sarah through a bunch of Titans, but she can get caught up on them pretty easily. We're gonna switch to running here as we fall down. We have a big Titan fight coming up right at the start here. We're gonna hold our sword block out, dash off. I have to wait till my dash recharges here, then phase dash, dash through here. Keep on your sword the entire time until we get to the wall here. You can just phase through like that. When you stop taking damage, switch to Scorch, and we got a huge Titan fight here. We have like a pretty consistent setup for like the first like 10-20 seconds of the fight, but after that it's gonna come down to decision making, kind of just playing whatever situation you get and try to make the best of the dice you rolled. Immediately we're gonna pull out Scorch. Alright, so the Titan fight here. My health bar is kind of bugged here because it's a quick save, but as soon as you stop taking damage from the turrets, we're gonna switch to Scorch and look at this kind of generator here, or whatever it is. We're going to throw down a flame trap and then flame wall immediately, just like that. We're gonna put up our flame shield as soon as these guys come in. Gonna shoot that guy, flank across, and that's like the first few guys we go through. There's a lot to cover here.
Yep.
I'm gonna try and take it slowly. Another cue for putting down the gas trap there is when the walls kind of start falling down. It's another good cue. We flank across. I put a gas trap down this guy, flame dupe it. We're going to use all our resources on this ion. Get core across.
Flame dupe, right? That's a
any guys
thing.
that are on this side. That's clear. Scorch is pretty much the best for like clearing out Titans really fast. You're at close range. We have to clear this down out. We're waiting for that dialogue right there. Pilot here with me. That means Sarah's gonna be ready to come through this tunnel here, and we're good to go. Usually. I'm gonna show that again because it's a lot to cover. Gas trap and flame wall here. Flame shield, these three guys. I like to shoot the Ronin over here. Get core. Come back, gas trap, flame dupe. Kill that guy, melt him. Shoot the ion over here, melt him. Get core. I'm actually gonna die here. Wow, that's a little unlucky. So gas trap, flame wall, flame shield. These three guys. Shoot over there. Flame core across. I like to do the flame core pretty early. Some people like to wait until the shield bubbles come down and then flame core. I like to do it early though and risk it. They might get blocked by the shields. So I do it early so I can come over here to the North Star and do the flame trap. Because sometimes if you come here late, the North Star will kind of just run away and it's a big pain in the ass to chase them down. It just kind of slows down the entire segment. Puts everything out of order. The flame shield, these three guys. Shoot the run in the back there. Core, gas trap, reload, flame dupe, melt him. But this guy puts up his shield, he'll actually kind of dodge, it'll kind of block the flame wall sometimes. So you might actually want to wait and do a flame shield to see if he's going to shield or not, and then do flame wall. So we kill him, flame core across again. Killing guys in the middle here. And once you get to this part of the fight, it's pretty much just decision making. Typically there's going to be like a bunch of low health guys here after the flame core, but sometimes there'll be like some guys like running outside.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to do there is I kind of switch the brute and I'll like snipe them if they're like one shot, just to get them killed, and that kills the or that gets the other friendly titans to come in and assist you in the fight. We're gonna go through that again. I just want to show out as many situations as possible here, because this is like a very RNG fight. You're gonna have to make decisions on the fly like time. Basically, how you get better at this segment is just becoming more familiar with Titan combat, managing your resources, and just kind of dealing with Titans in the most efficient way possible. So that was a pretty good lane core. So I actually heard the Titan drop behind me. So if you get a Titan drop over here, you'll always want to clear them out. That pretty much guarantees you're gonna have to kill too many guys when you get to the other side. So like, I should actually explain how that works. Once you kill like a certain number of Titans, a second wave of Titans will drop down. And that's how you know if you kind of progress like very far through the fight. And that's how you know the dialogue with Sarah's gonna pop up after a few Titan kills. The flame shield these guys, I have to shoot the Ronin. Flame core across before the bubbles go down. Reload, cash trap, flame dupe. So if this Ion's like all the way in the back, I just don't bother with him. That's gonna be way too much of my time dedicated just to one guy. So I'll just come over here, try to get core from any of these guys, and then flame core instead, just leave the Ion alone. And that's pretty much the same thing. So this is pretty bad RNG. We got one Titan in like the back here. I got another one over here. So ideally I should have checked behind me to see if I got any Titan drops close up here. It's gonna be better if you clear the right side first and then the left side. Because basically what we're trying to do this fight is clear the left side so that Sarah has a clear path all the way to the next section. And she will literally get caught up on like the smallest things. Sometimes even if you leave like a Reaper behind, she'll get caught up on that in very rare cases. So yeah, really trying to get as easy as possible for Sarah to come through this entire section. So flame dupe, shoot this guy, flame shield, flame wall, he doesn't shield. Get core back, core cross. No drop there, so we just go across. I'm gonna snipe these guys with brute. They don't have the range of Scorch. Switch back to Scorch when they get up close. Do some more flame duping. And we're actually looking for Titans here. So sometimes we'll be like literally no Titans. These Titans are over on like the middle or the right side here, where they spawn in. Or they're gonna like sneak out front. And there'll be like a bunch of leftover like one health Titans out in the field here. That's like the worst possible scenario. Because then Sarah will get caught up outside and it takes her forever to get back to the door over here. But yeah. Those are the general things you want to be wary of. I'm trying to show this one more time. Gas trap, flame wall, flame shield. Shoot the Ronin. Flame core, reload, gas trap, flame dupe. You look up. Shoot your shot, flame wall. This guy's actually doing a lot of damage to me. Flame core across. That was a bit slow, but it's fine. Oh yeah, if you get tethered here, switch to brute and just shoot on the ground. You can shoot with the Scorch shot as well, but you only have like one bullet with Scorch, so it's not very efficient. Yeah, tether's gonna be kind of annoying, but you can just switch to the brute to shoot them, and it's not too bad. Shoot the Ronin, core across, gas trap, reload, flame dupe, shoot this guy, flame shield, flame wall, get core, flame core across. That's actually really good RNG if they all group up like that. Finish off this guy. We actually gotta drop over here, so we can kill this town as well. Punch him with their low health, punch him with the fire as well. You can also do that. Maybe that guy. That's gonna be the line pretty quickly. Still got some extra Titans here, so even if you get the dialogue, you still want to make sure that the entire pathway is clear here for Sarah, so she doesn't get caught up on any Titans. When they come around to the left side, if the way is clear, you're going to Ronin core. Probably should have killed that Titan, but... Oh wait, that was from the tunnel actually, okay. Let me re-explain this. Let me get back to that spot. So Sarah's gonna have the dialogue. The whole left pathway is clear, so we're gonna Ronin core, dash over here, swipe the brute, swipe the Legion once. We're gonna look to the side, swipe if we have any extra core, kill him, and check behind if Sarah's coming, she's here, so we're gonna phase dash, dash. Over here, melee these guys, you can arc wave this guy, melee once, during the shield, go for headshots, switch the brute. Kill this Reaper, rockets, then we come over here. I'm gonna show that one more time. The left phase clear, into switch to Ronin, core, and this segment up here is always gonna be the same thing. Always gonna be the same order of Titans, look to the left, pull that guy, look behind. Sarah might get caught up on something while you're not looking. In this case she is, so we're gonna go back and kill whatever she's stuck on. Okay, never mind, she's actually good to go. We can just go across here. So these, this section's always gonna be the same every time, so it's not gonna be RNG at all. Phase dash, dash, dash crouch, melee, arc wave, melee during the shield once, go for headshots, push the brute, you can finish him off. Kill the Reaper. Whoops, did not die. Rocket these grunts. And then we get to trigger list. This is a pretty new strat. We used to like come straight through here with Ronin core and kill these Titans. But we actually found that the triggers are kind of just like big walls, big walls that we pass through here. But they don't extend all the way out. So we can actually just disembark as pilot. Oh no, this quick save sucks. Let me get back there real quick. Check behind us. There might be coming. Yeah, she's coming. Going to phase dash. Melee these guys. Arc wave.
I'm
Actually, I
learning.
should have mentioned when Sarah says that line out for stop
I'm
2 or whatever,
absorbing
that means she's
knowledge.
away, and she's actually keeping up, so that's a good sign. So once we rocket those grunts, we go over here, and we do triggerless, so we disembark, boost, come up on this rail, I do an instant double jump, crouch kick, double jump, do an extended slide up, C-Fed tap straight back in, crouch kick here, actually there, so I lost a bit of speed. And it actually skips all the Titans from spawning. This isn't really like much faster than the normal strat that we used to do, it's just more consistent. I think you can save up to like 5 seconds or something with it. That's not a huge time save, but it is pretty easy, so it's definitely worth going for, even if you're a beginner. Extended slide up, C-Fed tap straight back in, crouch kick. And here I like to look behind, because sometimes BT will protocol 4, and protocol 4 means row the run, which is this right here. Sometimes BT will decide to just kind of slowly walk to the elevator, which is extremely slow. And I'm like 9% sure this happens because you're too slow when doing the triggerless route here. If you don't take like this exact fast route, actually I don't want to get that work somehow. You want to see there instead.
You go out to the first big red pipe thing and back in on
Yeah.
the last.
I went fast enough, so
Okay.
BT's gonna keep up. He's gonna sprint all the way over here. And I should note with triggerless here, you really want to cut it like pretty far to the right. If you mess up and you go like even this far, Sarah's gonna say take those Titans out, pilot. That means that these Titans have spawned in and you messed up the strat. So definitely want to go pretty far to the right there. So one more time, disembark boost, instant double jump off the rail, crouch kick, Extend it, slide up, grab the wall, C-Fed, patch wave. Oh, kind of mess up the C-Fed.
Basically, just like
So I'm gonna
keep
slow.
to the outside
What
of
happens
those
when
like
BT
red
is still sprinting
wall
from over here, you keep
things.
going, and just kind of slide all the way to the end. But if he like stops, or he kind of like skirts and like 180s, tries to look for stuff, then you're just gonna want to embark because there's a good chance he's gonna protocol 4 after that, and then we just dash all the way to the elevator. And I should note, you should have a full core when you get to the elevator here because we're gonna be using core as soon as we get to the top here. So I'll show trigger this one more time. Disembark boost onto the rail, instant double jump, crouch kick, extend the slide up off the pipe, deep patch strafe, crouch kick off this wall, check behind, BT sprinting, so we're good. And Sarah can also troll here. Sarah can actually like single-handedly kill runs. It's not uncommon for her to be like stuck all the way back like behind where we started triggerless. Because for some reason she'll just get caught up in like grunts. And nobody knows why, that just kind of happens randomly. So you just kind of gotta hope Sarah keeps up somewhat here. As long as you clear the path for her, you should get like decent results most of the time. But on very rare occasions you can get controlled like super hard. So you want to stay at the back of the elevator so BT actually walks all the way in. Embark on BT, Sarah's gonna start the elevator.
Okay. I'll continue looking from after that. No. Okay, whatever. Sure, whatever. Fuck you too. Sure. Kill this fucker. I guess it wasn't moved, yeah. Boom. It was like here. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay. Weird. It's gonna take some getting used to, but and then of course Sarah's not here, but that's fine. Sarah's over there. Okay, so disembark. It's like instant double jump. That's what I said, I think. But I mean, as long as I just need to get my movement better there. Is this him protocol 4ing it? often faster to go get him. Yeah. So like right now he's just walking, so then it's better to sit far enough ahead makes sense. Okay, sure. I mean, I'll get that down with practice. I'll definitely like make sure to practice this section, but like, yeah, it's easy enough to go for, so I might as well, right? Is there anything else for this section then, or is that normal?
We're going to wait until we get to this third rung from the top of the elevator. We're going to dash and hover, and then crouch, come up here, switch to running, and then core, and we just dash all the way over here. Come through this little corner right here. Keep dashing, follow this line I take.
Okay, gotcha.
Face dash to this guy.
Gotcha.
Come up here, get rid of your core, line up your arc wave with these two titans. Going to get core off of them. You shoot this guy maybe too. So core again, face dash again, dash up here. Come up on this right side, you can pass by that Reaper pretty easily. Keep dashing. Come past this North Star. Sometimes a friendly titan will drop down here. You can just face dash through him. I actually should have face dashed earlier there, but it's fine. Keep dashing over here until you get to this ledge here. Some people like to phase dash into the cutscene here because it will recharge as it's playing. I like to phase dash a little bit before it. You can phase dash off like that. And just come up the left side here so you hit the end level trigger faster after these crates. I'll try and show that one more time. So,
Okay.
run from the top.
Just like different at the end.
来吧，铁玉预备，上升。简单的部分结束了。库珀表现不错，我认为你可以拿到体育证书了。赶快解决，然后回家。他在那里，时间还够，可以拦截盛会。
Mistake, that's fine. Yeah, no, you're right.
我们正在接近天龙星，继续前进。所有反抗军部队进入天龙星。天龙星快加满油了，快！位置到了，我们时间不多。最后检查完成，所有系统正常。他们要走了，我们得拿下那艘船，别让他们逃了。到那边的坡道。
Just a lot like getting back into muscle memory.
我让毒蛇接手了，待会见。
Okay. Cool.
巴克，谢谢你现身。
别客气。
马耳他战舰在10点钟方向防守天龙星，无法通过。库珀，我需要一位铁玉登上马耳他防守甲板。
弗里格斯指挥官，我是黑牛64，我们可以到他那里。BT，跟我们上去。
收到64。库珀，欢迎到64。
Seek,
库珀，很好，我们不能将你下到剑桥，
seek.
长宝绝对过不了。我们在船尾将你放下，然后自己想办法了。
目标左方。
库珀，我会在可能范围内尽量靠近。
跳得好，库珀，我们会从这掩护。
别抢！5号骑兵队有敌方泰坦铁玉，下面需要保全。我是 S4，正与敌方交战。
弗里格斯指挥官，我是坎贝。我们在马耳他的炮火和南军飞行泰坦之间撑不下去了。
我们正在想办法再撑一下。库珀正前往马耳他的主炮阵地。
我不确定这样可不可行。
库珀，快点！
由于驱动器破损，请弃船，有目标。
1号炮解决，敌方在前炮平台上。
I pulled that too early.
3号枪炮运
Did I
援
hit them both? Sick.
全被干掉了。
60要登机了。
马耳他的甲板上还有防空炮台在启用中，靠近前必须从剑桥解除炮台。
交给我们。库珀做得好，
掩护火力不赖。
有我罩你。弗里格斯指挥官，我们也需
Turn back on the music.
要你的协助。
Because we're just vibing.
我来了。这座剑桥通过那边的停机坪，有点子吗？我是布里格斯，要我做什么？
Ooh.
关上门，保持平稳。他脑袋坏了，马上放下升降机。他们在后面。哎，这工作。红色代表永远不会离部队已登上马耳他。
移动不动，戴维斯。
保全部队前往停机坪层。守住，红色代表，保全部队前往。快走掩护。
室内安全，剑桥就在上面。
Sure. I mean, that's gonna go how it goes. It's something that I'll focus on later. I just wanna like go through some of these later sections right now, and then just hop straight into a full game run, and then you know, it is what it is at that point.
我们打算打破玻璃，准备开始。楼梯旁的家伙，听狗在夹层里。
成型炸弹预备好了。
哎，库珀，看看64怎么做的。库珀，准备好了吗？
好了，
破开，破开，破开！安全吗？
安全。
就是这么做。64包在我身上，库珀去上门的操控。
Okay, don't have my controller connected, so
弗里格斯指挥官，马耳他已拿下。
收到64，库珀，继续掌控剑桥，使用电子刀在天龙星后方右转。巴克将 BT 带回给库珀。
没问题，我来了。等一下，铁人。
所有飞行员除掉敌人，到天龙星汇合。
yeah, I think this is way better with controller.
请左转。就这样，你做到了。这是你的泰坦库珀。
But I mean,
任务完成了。
it's whatever, really. I just don't have it connected right now, so and I can't be bothered to go back and connect it since I have to go to the back side of my PC. I really need a USB hub. I need to put that on my throne. Does someone want to buy me a USB hub?
无毒液、毒蛇已就位，铁鱼，你的旅程结束了。我掌握了太空，无路可跑，无处可躲。哪里攻击恶怪？ 毒蛇1号中弹，本来在战斗。
爆发就是警告，我们的
对他锁定你们，信号清晰。毒蛇1号失控，
Let's just die already.
失控。
警告，我们的反应不足。
Stupid.
布里格斯指挥官，我是 BT 7274，毒蛇已解决。
I was trying to move the ship, plus I oversteered my last run. Oh no.
我们会准备好移动。
库珀，我要扔了，
Well, that was definitely not fast enough for the cool strat, but that's
正
fine.
在调整风阻，计算中。
Okay, do I need to go through the last part? I should. Get rid of the hitch. Let's go through the general movement. I don't know how, but last run I got whatever it's called in Stone Fight. Recharge. I don't know how I did it, but I mean I got it. It's cool. Wow, that was
指挥官收到资料核心了，信号微弱。
a non-existent hitch.
确定你有他们的位置，等等信号，我得跟他们联络。
指挥官收到顾博的位置了，他拆了 BT 的资料核心，已经直达了 CV 工具组了。
顾博，我是莎拉布里格斯指挥官。
No.
你如果听到，快到你北边1公里处的桥梁，是我们反败为胜的唯一机会。我们往折叠时空武器来了，我们来了，还没结束呢。你的方向正确，继续前进就对了。在折叠时空武器周围的
Hi, Blackheart. Oh my god, is that the world famous GDQ runner Blackheart Wings in my chat?
下周还有最后一局先锋，我要调出资料核心，准备让泰坦降落。
No.
库珀，你的泰坦好了，准备好就空降，
Oh, that's
等
wrong
待泰
button.
坦降落。
World GDQ opener. Yes, that's me. God, I saw on Twitter, there's this person that has like reviewed every single GDQ run, right? And out of curiosity, I know I shouldn't, but out of curiosity, I was like, what do they say about me? I went to check, and it was like, wait, can I find it again, maybe? The Dragon Age Origins one, they just said that this is an incredibly broken run. And I'm like, cool, thank you. Who, I think you, Horse, posted something about it, right? Might have commented on something. Hmm. Maybe demonic. I think I found it. Yep, found it. So, SGDQ, Dragon Age Inquisition. A solid start to the marathon. Lots of stupid fun tricks. Great chemistry, but brought down by having to repeatedly retry a few tricks. Is he referring to my final boss one where I just couldn't hit it for 5 minutes straight? And I could have ended the run, but I really wanted to show off the trick. Also, the couch here is wrong. I don't know. And then here, Dragon Age Origins, an incredibly broken run. Starts with glitching character creation, then is a non-stop stream of clips and magic abuse. How's it just an overall 3 out of 5 stars, you know? It should at least be 4. But is it glitch hater? I guess. Well, at least to get my Dragon Age Inquisition a 4. But to be fair, Dragon Age Inquisition also has technically less glitches than Origins, I suppose. Yeah, no, dude, it is. It's so, like, what the fuck? The only problem with speedrunning this game is that you miss out on all the great writing. Like, hello? Please. Wait, I wanna see. It Takes Two. AGDQ 22, right? Why are you watching speedrun for this story, right? I was not expecting this to be this good. Brand new game, no pre-existing speeding community, and co-op? That does not sound like a recipe for a good speedrun. But it was. Lots of out of bounds, heavy reliance on checkpoint warps, some very tight movement tech. I also wasn't expecting this level of hype out of a 2 a.m. run, but the couch was popping off. There were a few bits that dragged. Not every auto-scroller has a skip yet, but it's better run than many much more established games. Well, to be fair, he didn't see my my contributions to the game yet. No, dude, I love the GDQ run. I don't know what I was doing up at that hour, because it was god early in the morning, and I was supposed to go to sleep. And I saw the run, and I was like, yo, this is so cool. Yet the starter run, bruh. Who else do I know? Oh, Returnal. It's cool. A quick bonus run. The 1 star? Due to a first attempt dying halfway through, that heavy RNG and poor explanation of what the rules were or what was going on make this a skippable run for anyone that isn't a devotee of Returnal. Nominally a roguelite, but just beats it in one straight shot, so it's more like a regular shooter, just with more RNG and heavy bullet hell influence. This man gave the Fashion Police Squad incentive 2 stars. Can you explain to me what that incentive is? Oh, dude, I want to check Bryce control run. It's an extra level. Gotcha. Three stars? A weird sort of game, very trippy visuals and story. Brian Otta trying to explain the lore was among the funniest bit. Not that most exciting speedrun, there was a lot of dead time, but the chatter makes up for it. Whatever. Whatever, dude. Cringe. What was that? Oh, hold on. Let me let me open it. What that was when was the Psychonauts run? What year was it? Same as It Takes Two. Am I spelling it wrong? They didn't watch it. Right, because it says 98%, so they haven't watched every single one. SGDQ 2019. Titanfall 2. 4 stars. Always a brilliant speed game. The best of source movement tech with just enough glitches and skips to keep things changing. Excellent commentary on the game from both Runner and Taskinos. Fun is 2 stars. Yo, this was the run where I followed Bry from. There were positive reviews too, I guess. And literally all of speedrunning Twitter was like, how does it feel to be so boring? I don't know, some people, like, you know, I can watch a speedrun, right? And it's like, I can say that, okay, this speedrun is not for me, right? But I can still, you know, appreciate it for what it is, because, like, people do still enjoy it, and there's cool stuff in other people's, like, speedruns, you know? So, like, hello? Please. Just, like, sit down and, you know, Relax. Vibe. Something. Yeah, I don't know. Some people.
控制转给铁玉。
库珀，我正在对
Some
岸尽全力
people.
开火，但还是无法阻止折叠时空武器。你必须进入控制室。布里格斯指挥官呼叫所有战斗岗位，我要你们火力支援库珀和 BT， 尽全力掩护他们。
收到，执行中。
库珀，到山峰上，我们掩护你，快！
原来盗术者麻烦的就是你啊！
继续前进，别落后了。斯托克队失去联系了，谁马上给我个回报？
我是罗特小的兰德格尔上尉，斯托克的重弹要坠毁了。
布里格斯指挥官，96师的盖斯，我们是不是来晚了？盖斯，你来的正好。马耳他还剩多少弹药？我们已经待下很多事，别担心库珀，我们罩你。库珀，我们在前方追踪布里斯克。
No!
圣会在他们手上，继续前进。
I have no cloaking. That's right.
我们必须全力阻止 IMC 启动折叠时空武器。
How dare you?
如果失败，反抗军的哈莫尼星将会被摧毁。
Woo! Oh my god. Please. No. No hitting me.
准备折叠时空武器。
我正在攻击敌方。
开启折叠时空武器能源系统，启动瞄准反馈。
目的地设成反抗军星球哈莫尼。
瞄准系统启动，哈莫尼星，坐标264.588，载入。
你拿到钱了。
Would you go to STDQ, Blackheart, if you're able to?
接着处理。
You think?
他们也该做些什么了。
哎，念念不忘当英雄吗？他是你的了，慢慢享用。
我有说过要抢救吗？这个免费奉送。
当我看着你就想看到。
Hi, Morgan. Hello.
我也走进就绪。
Oh, when is the dates? I didn't catch that. Late May, early June? Oh no. I wasn't expecting them to be that early. That is very early. Oh no. Also, I don't have...
可达致命等级，所有人员即刻退出本区，包括泰坦在内的电磁部队运作将严重影响。该死的机器，动起来吧！
Oh god.
折叠时空武器准备完毕，部署正会中。
Spring game's done quick. No, because historically, right, the SGDQ has been in late June, early July. Let me check.
之后就靠你了。
库珀，喷射器的冲击超载了我的主内部系统，正在设法还原视觉系统。
Yeah, I'm gonna look.
视觉系统已修复。
No pre-charge. No, that's kind of bad for me because I was hoping that it would be May 28th to June 4th. My phone is dead. Sick. I can't check. No, because I was hoping, like, when I looked at the dates originally, right, I was like, okay, historically, it's in late June, early July, which is perfect because I get my vacation money in June, which I've calculated to be $2,600, something like that. So I just get that, and then at the same time, in either May or June, it depends a bit depending on the year, as well as if you're like drawn out for a random control or whatever. I get my tax returns, which I think is going to be around $1,000, right? So it means I would have had like $3,600 at my disposal, which I'm not going to have if it's that early. GoFundMe to get them. I think I am gonna crowdfund for sure. If people want to donate, that would be sick. When are you leaving for Sweden, Try? Do you know? Oh. Yeah, I didn't even see that they tweeted this. Let me dig through my messages and see when I got my vacation money last time. Hey, that's curious. That would be cool, Try. That would be cool. So, okay. Let's see. Let's see. Search in here. No results. Is it not this one that I get the messages on then? Is it this one maybe? No. I get like text messages every time I get my salary. Okay, I found it. Yeah, I got my vacation money the 20th of June last year. So that makes sense. I'm gonna get it the 20th of June again this year because that's when I get paid. Damn, that's a really sucky timing. Okay. So May 28th to June 4th. Okay, so that means I'm gonna have to begin looking up flights and stuff, figure out a flight plan there. I'm gonna have to talk to Crisis and Coconut and stuff, because I think I'm gonna fly with them from Pennsylvania. So I think my immediate plan, as far as I can tell, because I can get flights with Norse Atlantic Airways from Oslo to New York. So it's May 28th. So here. That's it. I mean, I just like check whatever. Sure, I'll do something along there. Yeah, Saturday is $150 if I buy it now. And that's to New York. And then from New York, I'd do whatever down to Pennsylvania. Oh, so this one... oh, Bytes. So I mean that would be economy light. I would definitely be getting economy classic, so $250 then, right? $250. Because then I get a carry-on and a checked luggage. I do land at 10 p.m. I have no idea how the train connection is from New York to Pennsylvania, like how often it goes. But I feel like that's probably fine, right? There might be like a train I can take that late down to Pennsylvania or something. Hopefully. And then I could potentially stay with Crisis or something until we fly from there up to SGDQ. Either on the Sunday or on the Monday. I'll have to like talk with Crisis and stuff and figure all of that out. Yeah, so that's one way. Going back though, because okay, my flight would be interesting, right? Because I'd be going from Oslo to New York. I'd travel from there down to Pennsylvania and fly with like Crisis and Bloodshot, probably Coconut as well from there. To where is it? Okay, there's no location, but there's dates. I'm assuming it's gonna be in Minnesota still. Who knows? New York is still the cheapest way for me to get into the US anyway. So whatever that is. And then after GDQ, I'm going to Las Vegas to meet Alice. Yeah. If I'd go after, right, then I'd stay 2 weeks and then come back home. And then I get the vacation money there. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Let me check. Maybe I can see when I got my tax returns. Because if those come earlier, that's definitely going to help. The only thing I'm scared about is like having enough to live on while I'm there, you know? Scots. No, I can't find it. Okay, whatever. We'll look more into that later. It's cool. We have the dates. It just sucks that it didn't follow the typical dates. You know. Yeah, no, that's so incredibly bad timing. Yeah. I mean, I could potentially like borrow some money from my grandma and pay her back, but it's like, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll begin looking more into that soonish. Well, the sooner the better, because May isn't far away. It's not that far away. Yeah. Jesus, my phone. Yeah, no, that really sucks. Because I had a lot of money saved up from last time I had my tax returns, right? But then I had to spend them all on fixing my fucking car. So that I'm not a happy camper. Yeah, I think. Okay. What's the plan? Yeah, I definitely wanted to do some sort of like fundraiser for GDQ just to make traveling easier, right? So I'll figure some stuff out, and I think I'm gonna plan like an event and stuff to like start it off. Like, I don't know. A subathon? I don't know, that feels kind of weird considering my size, but yeah. Oh well. Oh well. We'll figure all of that out. Hopefully it works out. It would be really cool to go. It would be really cool. Anyway, let's just let's just get into a run. I've been just like messing around for an hour and a half, so. But Ayo, I love messing around. Okay.
步枪兵库珀，我们走吧。该死，船上的模拟舱一定重启过了，我们得重新设定。
Okay, so thank you, Tansu. Thank you. Good night. Okay, so my colleague is quitting, right? Because he got a way better offer at another store. And he asked me if I wanted to come join him, and like, you know, I said yes. So like he was gonna like give my number to his boss there and stuff. If he reaches back to me, because like I earn 186 Norwegian crowns per hour right now where I work, which is roughly like around $18, right? Damn it. But there's a very high likelihood that if I get the offer at the other store, I'll be earning 22 an hour. No. So like, if I get that offer, then yeah, I'm taking it, because that's like way more money for my time, you know? No. Oh God. I'm trying to think of how I can make it work. It depends. It depends a bit on the fundraiser. Like if you guys are willing to help me go, that would be cool. But okay, good night, Robert. Thank you so much for hanging out. If not, I might have to. If I don't get the job as well, I might have to like actually ask for more shifts. But the problem is like an 80% job position at where I work isn't 4 days a week. It's 4 1 week and then 5 the other, because I don't work full hours every day.
库珀，准备好。别急，克罗，他刚离开虚拟实境，需要点时间适应。他没问题的，相信我。是，长官。全体就战斗位置。这不是演习。
Where's Crisis?
他们杀过来。
I need to talk to her.
想要杀过来。训练还不错，有一天你会熟练它。
Whatever.
我会把你训练成铁玉的。
We think about that later. We think about that later. It's not
没时间了。
拉斯提莫莎，
安德森，
畜生！我们下面见。
今天会看到一颗新的星球，说不定就死在那里了。
Yep. It's just I really want to go, and I was really hoping it would be, you know, after I got my vacation money and stuff, because then all I needed to like focus on was paying for my flights and hotel and all of that, right? And the hotel, I might even be able to just I might have just even been able to like you know, pay on site and not like prepay it. But yeah. I mean, we might not even stay at a hotel. I mean, there's Airbnbs, I guess. I mean, actually, no, I just remembered I do have some money saved off. It was supposed to be for something else, but I could totally like use it for this. Yeah. No, I'm gonna.
反抗军步枪兵捷克复活编号20131，稳住状况，给予250毫克的3速分弹。
Even if I ask for more shifts from like February forward, that's anything I work in February, I don't get paid until the 20th of March. So there wouldn't be like, I mean, okay. Think about that another day. Yep, no, stop thinking about it. We're just going fast now. Except for this. Oh no, my headset is running out of charge. I hope it lasts through this level. Yeah, it sounds a pretty cool gun game. Get a world record back. As if I could ever contend for world record in this game. A world record I should get back though is Dragon Age 2. No! Dude, why am I all the way back here? I mean, it's not that far, but... Yeah. Blackheart, you want to see my list? Because, oh my god. So, okay, what's on my list? There is Dragon Age Inquisition again, which would be the Trespasser category and all dragons, right? Which could also be races with Coconut if he's willing to go. Dude, you fucker. Okay, whatever. Everyone was a paid act. Bites. Okay, yeah, so Dragon Age, Inquisition, Trespasser, and All Dragons, right? Those two categories for that. Then I think Dragon Age 2, because Dragon Age 2 is at least mildly interesting now. It's not like super exciting, right? But I think it's like, it's cool enough that it could be a marathon run. So I mean, why not submit it, right? Then there is It Takes Two Hundo with Glint. And then I'm thinking I kind of wanted to learn Anthem. Oh my god. This checkpoint. Jesus Christ.
电力不足。电力2/3，资料核心重新初始化，视觉系统启动，调整焦距中。你还好吗，铁玉
Okay, sure. Whatever.
我的系统正在重启，有3个电池将会加速程序，我会在这里等待。
中尉，你有多了解库本布里斯特？
Sure. And it's shooting twice, that's right.
在我能行动之前，我会透过头盔无线电协助你。铁玉，地图系统已重启。
Because like no joke, even though like Anthem late game, right, kind of sucked ass, I still like really enjoyed the story. And I looked at the speedrun and it was kind of cool. And there is like potential with co-op there too. So I mean, Coconut said he might be down to like do some shenanigans there. I haven't seen proper Anthem gameplay. It's not much. There we go. It took me fucking forever. No, because like me and Coconut saw it at like BioWareathon. And like it was kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Yeah, I might, yeah, gonna look into it.
能量全开。铁玉，必须先建立神经连结才能继续。准备完请登机。
好了。
协议1，连线铁玉，神经连线。
Now what I need. Can someone sponsor me? Or can someone hook me up with a sugar daddy real quick? Please, I'm begging.
命令是要继续特殊作业217，跟安德森少校会合。我侦测到敌方部队来袭。协议3，保护铁玉，重启主要系统。
Find one yourself.
光线防护罩能捕捉射过来的子弹与炮弹，释放按钮能将所有捕捉到的物品射向敌人。铁玉，助手舱启动了。
Why is Alice sending me a message saying, "So you're gonna be angry"? I'm scared.
神经连线完成，主武器控制与动作连线已重新建立。铁玉，侦测到敌方泰坦，我们准备杀出一条血路吧。
你确定吗？
相信我。
发现反抗军泰坦，机身号码 BT7274。
Damn it.
做得好，我们的战斗效率评分增加了。铁玉，我侦测到有更多 IMC 回收队在路上。我们要生存的唯一机会是完成跟安德森少校会合的任务，在那之前。 我们得靠自己。标记抬头显示， 我们必须动作快。
Dude. Bytes, you know this. You know Alice has had this weird ass cough for fucking forever. And she sent me a message saying, guess who can't see their doctor? Because suddenly they don't take their insurance. See, I hate fucking US healthcare. Because what the fuck? Like you wanna I went to the doctor a few weeks ago, and right, I'm in a place where I can get a doctor's appointment the same day. And guess what I pay to go see the doctor, right? I went to the doctor, had a consultation, had some blood taken. I paid $20. Can't get a new glasses prescription. Ugh. Oh, glasses prescription isn't covered by healthcare, and it's like severely bad here, so but like it's still not too bad. I think I get my eyes checked every 2 years, which reminds me I'm overdue of checking them again. And it's like $50 to get them checked. And then I think for these glasses I paid like $100 or something. Too much for it. Oh god. I'm so sorry that y'all live in the US. Because what the fuck? It's ridiculous. It's just upsetting because, you know, healthcare should be for everyone. Like, it should be freely available and accessible to everyone that needs it. Which is why, like, I'm happy to tax the money that I do, because I know that, like, hey, if someone less fortunate than me, they still have access to go to the doctor, right? And like get help with whatever problems they have without having to worry about like being able to afford it. Sucks.
和 SRS 铁狱在击杀我的爱人援军，管你是谁。不错，
警告，3A区有猎兽体
总有不如爱吧。希望你比我上一次干掉的那个强。
体育，小心行事。铁狱，我们的道路将在前方交汇。铁狱。 流量调节门挡住我们通过这个设施的路了。附近应该有控制点。我不是对你开枪射击，这会违反协议3。
当我没说。全附近！BT，好久不见。
正好相反，你的头盔能提供模拟的即时影像。你在那里打得不错，铁玉。关闭烂泥流的控制器，在下个房间里。你的抬头显示有标记。已启动铁玉模式。
Okay, I'm actually dying, or can I deal with it on my own?
跟安德森少校会合。
Fucking sucks. I'm so sorry. Like, what the heck? Like, it's like here, right? I am paying, like, a deposit, I guess, or of some kind, or whatever. When I go to the doctor, right? And it's not much. Like I said, it's 20 bucks. When I had to operate my toe, it was like 30 bucks. Yeah, deductible is the word I was after. And even then, like, if you for some reason are in a situation where you're not able to pay your deductible, then like they'll figure it out. And if you have to go to the doctor so much, the max amount you can pay in deductibles a year is $200, at least last time I checked. If you ever reach that limit, or you go above it, then if you go above it, then you get refunded like whatever excess there was, and then any other doctor visit or operation that you have to take that year is free. Like no deductible charge at all. Jesus, try. I'm so sorry. Like, what the fuck?
安德森少校走的是这条路，他可能是到汇合点的捷径。我建议我们继续前进，小心前进。
Jesus Christ.
来去，我是布里斯克，收到没？完毕。
我是艾许，说吧。
肯人没回复，我看这反抗军的铁玉想当大英雄。
Like, you shouldn't benefit off of someone's health. The end of the sentence. That's yeah, no. You shouldn't benefit off of someone else's health. Like, at all. Damn it. I thought I was gonna slide off, but I didn't, Sedge. It sends me back here. Sick. This time I slid off, but I panicked. Stop! I'm trying to get up here, thank you.
梯是条捷径，看看你的抬头显示就能找到控制台。
Sure, sick.
看见了，这名铁玉。破敌已启动。
对不对？敌方铁玉隐形中。
铁玉，我需要协助。
警告！警告！13号码发现未授权泰坦，将泰坦移至资产处置处。
艾雪呼叫。
Yeah, no, it's what the fuck.
铁玉，我需要协助。
看来自动保全发现了泰坦，真省事。
铁玉，库珀，如果你听到的话，我正被带往这个设施的变电站。
Yeah. What the fuck? Insulin is like so incredibly important for the people that need it, right? So like why the fuck charge so much for it? It's one of the reasons like I'm happy, like, you know, St. Jude's Children's Hospital, right? Like they do a lot of like cancer research and stuff like that, right? And anything that they discover, they patent it purely, oh Jesus, purely so that others can't profit off of it. And then they freely share that with, you know, the rest of the world. Or like whoever needs it.
铁玉，我正被他沿着装配线往下带走，可能有共通出口，建议你沿着平台的动线走。铁玉，这设施十分危险，小心生产线上的机械。
Yeah, it's dumb. I am like, I recognize how privileged I am and how lucky I am to have like been born in Norway, you know? But it's still so mind-boggling to me, you know, something that I so easily take for granted because it's just like a fact. It's the thing. It's always like this, right? And it's like, what the fuck? What do you mean people can't like just get the medicine that they need to live, you know? I hope this is the right lineup. Yeah. I don't know, it's just... it's crazy to me. It shouldn't be that way. At all.
显示圆顶上方是你最佳的出路。我建议你想尽办法也要上去。
What's up, Try? What are you what the fucking about? Never seen anyone else do Bladen setup. I looked at this tutorial because I was struggling with the lineup so much, and I was like, dude, this is so much easier. I'm landing it every single time.
动态模拟圆顶314中载入情境127。现在，让我们瞧瞧你到底有什么。
Nice. Even golded that. Sick. And that was with stupid deaths and shit.
杀了那个铁玉，
我正在处理它。
别烦了，
我就不能享受我的工作吗？
不行，你得尽快处理。
了解了，艾许完毕。
别担心，有了干掉他后的奖金，你就可以去买所有你想要的玩具了。
重新补充这个Charlie，负责21到29号的引爆。
体育，
所有安阳
到底做了什么？ 在一连串的爆炸让机械手臂放松了，活已脱困。
由于安全漏洞，我已建议将
这地方要崩塌了，建议我们尽快离开。你离我的位置不远，抬头显示有标记。
我建议你们马上撤离。
No, dude, I am struggle busing here. Oh shit, a bop, right? I heard it again because of Just Dance. And I was like, yo, this is a bop, I need to add it again. Nice. I don't know why I used them. It's fine, whatever. And then it's like here. Ooh. Cool. Wow, we're ahead again. Oh my god. How is this actually compared to... Alright. This is against actual PB. Not balanced. Oh my god.
体育，安德森少校在这里调查这座设施，我跟你在另一边会合。
Whatever.
要求所有在处理圣柜分析报告的小组
Thank you.
都到演讲厅听马德将军的简报，谢谢。
果断消灭反抗军部队。我们铁玉有什么事吗？
By the way, for everyone here, you should 100% tune in for my stream on Saturday. It's gonna be me working more on my game dev stuff. Yeah. No, we had a ton of fun, like, figuring out the concepts. Ended up being a pretty short stream.
铁玉，给我他的头盔就可以分析。
It was like 2.5 hours or something.
特殊作业
So right now I'm blasting through some Unreal Engine courses so I can learn like a lot of the basics. So you know I don't like end up sitting there like googling some super basic stuff every like 5 minutes, right? Sure. And God, the part of the course I'm in right now has a lot of theory in it, and I'm like, oh, I just wanna... I'm a very practical learner. I like to learn by doing. So...
体育，安德森少校所收集的数据显示不完整，我们有责任坚守并完成特殊作业217。建议我们在继续前，先找到安德森的完带装置。
我们应该怎么办？
我们的任务已更新。我侦测
But
到
Jeff,
安全守卫建筑上
I can't stretch right
我
now,
会提供进入的权
but I
限。
will after this run.
在你调查设施已取得情报和丢失装置时，我会待在这里扫描环状结构。
一定有比较简单的方法 ，PT。
我会想办法。
No, but yeah, I'm excited to make games. I'm like the fact that we made it very clear that like we made the scope very small, so it's like a finishable product for me in like not too long time. I think really like made me way more excited about it too, because then it's like, okay, this is actually something I can finish, you know? Damn. Hi, Beanie. Hello. So yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, the game that I'm gonna be making, like we drew a random theme and made chat vote on it, and the theme ended up being leaps and bounds. So the concept that we came up with is You're a character in 3D space, and the only way that you have of moving around is with Jesus, hold on. Is with leaps and bounds, aka like a vertical and a horizontal jump. Which I think can make for some interesting like challenge levels and stuff. But yes, hello cuties. So many cuties in chat today. So let's go. Are anyone else here Drag Race fans? I hope so. No. Jesus Christ. Oh my god.
铁玉，这里的轮环有大量残存的圣柜能量，这是圣柜的终点站。安德森的计划中有一节靠近轮环中心的侦察任务。
Impulse, thank you so much for the 69 bits. Supernova, brightest of the stars. From another. Hello, cutie. I would watch it since the first 5 seasons. You feel so out of touch, dude. I bet because season 15 is airing right now. Plus, like, however many spin-off seasons there have been. I haven't watched a lot of the international ones, but I've watched like Down Under, Canada's, UK, and of course US. Those have been like the main ones. And then Versus the World. I never finished watching Canada versus the World. But I've seen every single US drag season, including All Stars. So
建议到轮环附近跟我会合，并扫描圣柜的能量特征。我找到桥梁延伸至轮环的操控台，抬头显示有标记。旅馆安全协议，马上开始测试。你似乎曾做过些什么，导致这些先存的自动保全系统现在对你有些敌意。
圣柜超载了。
like the fakest bisexual because you don't watch Drag Race. I think you're fine, Blackheart. I think you're fine. But I will say it's a lot of fun. I don't know. I really enjoy watching it. I fucking live. But also, like, dude, I fucking love reality TV. Dude, The Circle, really cool. And then There is one. I don't remember what it's called. I can't remember what it's called, but there's this reality TV show about like yeah, that's the social media one, Bytes. There was one about like a bunch of horny people coming together thinking they're gonna have the time of their lives on an island, and then this like robot cone shows up named Lana that is like no sex, no kissing, and they're all like, oh, and I fucking live for that shit so much. Watching horny people trying not to be horny. No, it's not Love Island. Hold on, I mean I can find it right now. Too Hot to Handle. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one, dude. I live. I live. Yeah, no, dude. I'm not sure I can show off the trailer because there's a lot of skin. But dude, I live. I live. That's all I can say.
库珀铁狱，安德森死了，但只要能和舰队重新连线，我们就能完成他的任务。前方的星际信号台刚好派上用场。铁狱，信号台就在前方。 扫描显示能量运作低下，可能需要维修。注意，发现了许多未知目标。发现敌人，这些潜行者似乎被输入指令攻击控制室。
Yeah, it's Chinese, yes. The fastest language.
注意，我发现物中包含有毒化学物质，敌人已消灭。做得好，这场胜利是我们良好战斗效率的表现。铁狱，我发现信号 BT7274呼叫反抗军部队，敌人已被消灭。
你救了我们一命，那些潜行者没完没了的，我们可撑不了多久。
Yeah.
外面的，我们要打开防爆门了，进来吧。我是反抗军手榴弹兵第3部队的科尔上尉，跟泰坦在电梯上，麦克科德带他们上去。
我建议我们协助消灭那些潜行者，并与反抗军步枪兵联系。上尉，信号台状况如何？
电源已关闭了，我们没办法控制它，必须有像这样的东西才能重新启动它。不过这个已经坏了。
名称：电弧装置，功能：产生高达5兆焦耳的能量。
I don't remember how much time it saved. Not sure like what the difference is, but I think it was like 23 seconds or something.
那地方根本不是人为所建的。
了解了，库珀铁狱，我建议在设施分台里面行动时小心一点。你必须取回电弧装置。
26. Well, there you go. The master at it.
祝您好运。 我已连接至你的头盔抬头显示已更新进度，频道随时开启，供你需要时使用。
Ooh, that was scary.
成功，风扇已关闭，电弧装置距离30公尺。
做得好，体育。已获得电弧装置，返回控制室，系统已准备重启。
Damn it. Too much. That was so fast.
跳过来了，我还以为他死定了呢。佩服佩服，铁玉，他们正在控制着。
Okay, whatever. It's fine. Nice.
铁玉回来了，这看起来像是电弧装置，我们终于找到对地方了。
做得好，库珀铁玉，现在能够启动电力供信号台运作。
电缆准备好了。很高兴见到你回来，长官。正好里面将整个电路重新配置完了，现在就差电源。
铁玉，电源室的继电器都已关闭，使用电弧装置应该就能够手动发动它们。
铁玉，希望这电弧装置没让我们白费力气。
注意，前方发现高辐射含量，你的防护衣在房间内只能保护你一段时间。我建议你动作快。
除非你想被烤熟，不然我
Maybe for my fundraising I'd do something crazy like stream every day in February. I'm gonna hate myself though. After. Jesus Christ.
电力达到100%，我建议你迅速离开此房间。
做得好，铁玉，电力恢复了。好了，有电源了，打开防护闸，我们去修复信号台。狂野开启招。
诊断完毕，电力100%。
开始重启天线锁定。
开始重启连线锁定模组。
60%、70%、80%、90%。
警告，发现错误，紧急关闭。
搞什么？
清楚，拨动防护上装置。
上尉，连线锁定模组已关闭。
该死的 IMC 八成正朝着这里来。
非常有可能。
能透过旁路连通模组吗？
没办法，长官，除非你想向整个 IMC 舰队进行广播。
我们得手动修复这模组。
铁玉，看来又得靠你了。
希望你不介意再冒一次
This could use my skills. Oh my
到
god.
现场修复信号台，并尽快赶回来。
控制转给铁玉。
小心了，我们今天已经在那里失去够多好兄弟们。
扫描显示阵亡铁玉。我记得这名铁玉在摧残之地行动中表现非常出色。我的扫描器发现了运作中的连线锁定模组，东北方428公尺。我的分析结果显示，投掷是唯一的办法。我能够将你扔过去。风力3节，风向274，距离95公尺，投掷质量89公斤。相信我。
Function hole. No! My speed. I messed up.
IMC 运输船正朝着你过来。
行了的，我是布里斯克。在体育前路信号台，干掉他，全靠你了，布里斯克。
Something I'd practiced so much too. I'm sad.
Fighting Kleinmann will last me nicht hängen.
A4，我们
们正在调度副队协助，预计3分钟抵达。
Whatever.
K1 进军 A2，快让士兵着陆，快点！ K14 发现敌方铁域，正朝你方向前进，请回复。K14 收到没？回答我 K14。所有单位 K14没有回应，准备进攻目标所在的信号台4号。收到，就位于信号台4号构台处，等待拦截。
发现连线锁定模组，检查抬头显示。
信号台4号构台上的小队已阵亡，铁域可能是要从这里发送信号。
416呼叫李赫特，铁域的意图不明，他可能是要把我们调离泰坦。
铁域模组位于天线的投射器中。
Well, I mean, still faster than whatever I had before because I clearly messed up real bad last time. So.
协议2，任务更新，获得连线模组，我们等你回来，库珀。
注意进入维修模式。
A21回报 ，Citron，kommen rein，was zum Teufel？ 反泰坦小队已抵达，请求支援。
Oh my god, I'm messing up all of my inputs. I'm safe for next time, it's true.
欢迎回来，库珀。我建议先保护此区域，再进行维修。将控制转给铁域。死神击毁。好想法。前行者击毁。
歼灭所有敌人，区域安全。没事吧，铁玉？
I never remember if I'm supposed to click anything here. So I'm just gonna let that be.
协议2，任务更新，替换连线模组。模组的插槽在天线上方，我将你扔上去后，你再
More time save. Let's go. Basically, just because I didn't die.
接到你了。
铁玉，天线已启动，你快来我对上舰队发送讯息。你实在是要假长官。
李赫特，我是布里斯克。
呀，我在路上了。李赫特回避。我是李赫特，拦截并终结那个铁玉。 然后将剩下的反抗军处决。
死神接近中。对，封锁控制室，发现敌人。
收到，封锁中，我们会在这里提供支援。
发现异常活动，可能是敌方泰坦。
MC 听着，我现在要升任军衔，也想取人性命，你自己做选择。Yes, fucking fair team。
反抗军，你惹到不该惹的人了。
Okay. Put that.
方泰坦倒地，
让他活着离开，你们统统都该死。 真正的战斗，我们瞧瞧你近身个人战表现如何。Wurde bist du beglaubt wie ein kleiner Junge.
敌方泰坦倒地。
好，所有系统正常。
Well,
是，通讯程序已启动，有效，通讯能量达25%攀升中，60%，很好，快到了，80%。
let's see.
信号传送达最大能量。
So my PB is actually at 128 something. I think a 128.15. I'm still gonna need a lot of time save if I'm gonna beat that this run.
布里格斯指挥官，我是 BT7274，协议2，坚守任
协议2
务，回报情报给隶属 SRS 单位的舰队。
清楚收到，很高兴听到你们还在下面。我们现在正在接收资料。
What languages do you speak, Blackheart?
泰坦 BT7274，资料记录器显示，原来的铁玉已阵亡。
Hi, can I get world record this run, please? I think it's a little too late for that, dude. Yeah, thank you, Magnus. Oh my god, I'm gonna call this Fall Titan. Just English and Spanish, cool.
了解，我们会将你转给合格的铁玉。
反对，库珀是我的铁玉。我们现在的作战效率分超过90%，请求授权保持此连线。
BT， 你该庆幸我们无计可施。准许授权。库珀，有台机器很赞许你。幸好有你的圣柜扫描资料，我们已经追踪其能量特征到 IMC 的体风星基地上。我们时间不多，快走吧。
More time save, woo! Still gonna need way more though. But yeah, it's just the two. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, yeah, I know English and Norwegian. Because I know Norwegian, I can also understand Danish and Swedish. But God, some people that speak Danish, it's so hard to understand them sometimes because it's like, you know. So, I do, Magnus. I have one Danish customer at work, and I feel so bad every time because I literally don't understand a single word she's saying. It's like I need to ask her to speak very slowly if I'm going to understand anything she's saying, because I guess she has a really broad dialect or something of Danish, but it's just like, nope, it's not happening. Clip and sending it to your sister. Oh no. Does she know Danish? I'm sorry if I offended any Danish people in chat. Dude, same. Because like I'm pretty good at English, but when my brain is like on like Norwegian mode, right? Like suddenly switching from Norwegian to English is so jarring. Oh, whoops. Sorry.
铁玉，跟我来。
Okay.
进入隧道。射得好，库珀铁玉，继续努力。
I think I'm not gonna study trip. Ooh.
发现先锋形态，交战中。
104号，快点2号，这个区域清清。库珀铁玉，跟我来，走吧，漂亮的击杀领域，继续启动。
It's just slow because I'm slow. It's whatever.
已启动体育控制。
来吧，铁玉预备，上升。简单的部分结束了。库珀表现不错，我认为你可以拿到体育证书了。赶快解决，然后回家。他在那里，时间还够，可以拦截圣柜。 上！敌军来袭！继续向前推进，不能让圣柜安内伤怀。
我们被包围了，头头一天后。
建核心就绪。
射得好，继续前进。我们正在接近天龙星，继续前进。所有反抗军部队进入天龙星。天龙星快加满油了，快！护卫机到了，我们时间不多。
最后检查完成，所有系统正常。
他们要走了，我们得拿下那艘船，也让他们逃了，到那边的坡道。
布里斯克，这是史龙，圣柜朝你那去了，我让毒蛇接手了，待会儿见。
Cool. Another gold. Let's go. All right. Let's see. Oh, that's right. Supposed to do this here. Well.
IMC 已带着他前往天龙星的折叠时空武器，所有船舰全速前进，务必迅速的击溃他们。布里格斯完毕。
收到，64立刻前往。我们来了，我是坎贝尔布雷斯特上尉，我们将提供支援平台。
发现敌方中队，锁定弓箭手，偷袭成功，教训他们。
512号，512号，飞弹脱离轨道。深水1号，深水2号，中了！所有轨道确认装备深水炸弹。
接下来要登上日。
If I keep golding like this,
我们必须赶上天龙星。
I might actually be able to beat my PB. Like if I only gold from here on out.
那是什么鬼东西？有谁看清楚吗？
I mean,
获得运输机怪人。
视野清楚，目标锁定。
战，小子！准备好！
巴克，谢谢你现身。
别客气。
马耳他战舰在10点钟方向防守天龙星，无法通过。库珀，我需要一位铁狱登上马耳他防守甲板。
普里格斯指挥官，我是黑鸟64，我们可以到他那里。BT，跟我们上去。
收到64。
I held it on the wrong
马耳他
dialogue.
战舰在10点钟方向防守天龙星，无法通过。库珀，我需要一位铁狱登上马耳他防守甲板。
普里格斯指挥官，我是黑鸟64，我们可以到他那里。BT，跟我们上去。
收到64。
Oh my god.
马耳他战舰在10点钟方向防守天龙星，无法通过。库珀，我需要一位铁狱登上马耳他防守甲板。
普里格斯指挥官，我是黑鸟64，我们可以到他那里。BT，跟我们。
Rip.
马耳他战舰在10点钟方向防守天龙星，无法通过。库珀，我需要一位铁狱登上马耳他防守甲板。
普里格斯指挥官，我是黑鸟64，我们可以到他那里。BT，跟我们上去。
收到64。
There we go.
欢迎到64。
请到我的手里，我将会把你放上黑鸟6。
Lost some time here. That's
我们
fine.
才会将你放下，然后自己想办法了。
目标左方。
库珀，我会在可能范围内尽量。
跳得好！
我们会从这掩护。
启动前行者，我出动了，掩护我。我是 X4，战士集团交战。
普里格斯指挥官，我是坎贝。我们在马耳他的炮火和那具飞行泰坦之间撑不下去了。
我们正在想办法再撑一下。库珀正前往马耳他的主炮阵地。
我不确定这可不可行。
库珀，快点！
由于驱动器破损，请弃船，弃船。
有目标！敌方在枪炮平台上。我们遭受攻击，找掩护。
3号枪炮也解决，
全被干掉了。
我看不到敌人。库珀，等一下，64要登机了。
马耳他的甲板上还有防空炮台在启用中，靠近前必须从剑桥解
I mean, my pace is sub 90, which is good.
库珀做得好，掩护火力不赖，有我罩你。
普里格斯指挥官，我们也需要你的协助。
收到，贝尔，我来了。这座剑桥通过那边的停机坪，有点子吗？我是布里格斯，要我做什么？
关上门，保持平稳。
他脑袋坏了。起飞前检查名单。在后面。马上放下。
哎，这动作。
色弹永远不会腻。部队已登上马耳他。
移动不动，戴维斯。
部队前往停机坪。红色代码。部队前往停机坪。
快找掩护！
室内安全，剑桥就在上面。
跟我来。
Cool. I will take it.
别射击，它是防弹的。我们打算打破玻璃，准备开始。
楼梯旁的家伙。
天狗在夹层里。
成型炸弹预备好了。
哎，库珀，看看64怎么做的。
库珀，准备好了吗？
好了。
破开，破开，破开！
安全吗？
安全，
就是这么做。
64包在我身上，库珀去上我的操控台解除剑桥的枪炮。普里格斯指挥官，马耳他已拿下。
收到64。库珀，继续掌控剑桥，使用电子刀在天龙星后方右转。巴克，将 BT 带回给库珀。
没问题，我来了。等一下，铁人。
所有飞行员除掉敌人，到天龙星汇合。就这样。
就这样，你做到了。
这是你的泰坦，库珀。保姆任务完成了。
I'm wide awake now, because I'm wide awake.
将控制权转交铁玉。
不伯，我们从后方掩护你，到甲板上前去天龙星。
巫毒液、毒蛇、九尾，铁玉，你的旅程结束了。我掌握了太空，无路可跑，无处可躲。哪里攻击恶棍？毒蛇1号中弹，本可在战斗。
警告！警告！
都有空袭！09零20看，这里蛇锁定你们，信号清晰。1号，落地时候开始追击，求救！求救！开始追击！
敌方泰坦到底。
That was so scary.
德斯指挥官，我是 BT7274，毒蛇已解决。
收到，登上天龙星并守护盛会，我们会准备好移动。
库珀，我要扔了。正在调整风阻，计算中。
What you mean? Is it really scary? Giant thing. Lose my self-esteem. See?
左臂严重受损，不过我仍然可以运作。这艘船正高速下坠，靠我们的，库珀。
Let's go.
正接近圣柜的遏制单位。遏制单位大到无法携带，我们必须随机应变。
Gamer. Hi, Fluffy. Hello, Fluffy. Hello. Hello. How's it going?
我无法到达圣柜，库珀，我需要你的帮忙。
I don't. Video. Huh? I'm confused.
快点，赶快离舰，时间不多了。
Yeah, derust splits. Originally, I didn't find my actual ult split. I found them now, but at this point, I'm like, I'm just gonna stick with these because these have sub splits. My ult splits apparently didn't have. So.
不行，我们被困住了。
你在做什么？
协议3，我不会失去另一位体育的。
But
准备撞击。
if I keep hitting golds, I don't know how big of a likelihood it is to get big golds and fold, but it could happen. If I do get some big golds, I can still PB. Because I think my PB was a 128.15, maybe. So, but who knows? My rust might be really showing. So, who knows? But that's good to know because I was like a minute behind at some point this run, so I can definitely like have a minute full flat with PB off that.
语音指令无法辨识。
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't remember IL times either, so.
盯着大英雄，你有我的东西，我要你把它还给我。
kind of just vibing. When I saw Bytes like begin learning the run and stuff, that made me really want to get back into it. And then of course like Bytes completely obliterated my PB, so I have some fighting to do. The goal is to destroy Bytes in the tournament. That is my goal. Of course, beat his PB too, but it would be funny to destroy a fellow It Takes Two homie. Ooh. Do it, go for it. That's exciting. Yeah, it feels kind of good to be back to this game. Like last time I actively ran it was in 2020. Of course I like derusted a little bit for each of the tournaments, but never like to this degree, I guess. And then my goal as well this time around is to try and not like fake constantly, because I couldn't stop shaking the last time. Because tournament nerves are fucking cruel. Where's the drum go?
库珀，在这里。库珀，我没办法完成任务了，但你还可以把 Seer 工具组拿去。你需要生还，得靠它。
Paid off, yeah. No, but sometimes it is like that though. Like you take an extended break from something, right? And you come back and it's just like, I don't know, just like something just hits a bit different, I guess. Like, I'm sure if I went back and began grinding like Dragon Age Inquisition 90% or something like that, I wouldn't be struggling too much with it anymore, because like the muscle memory has like set, I guess, is my best explanation for it. Yo, are you planning on going to SGDQ? Yeah, that's a mood. I would love to go. And I was like planning on it too, out of like historically looking at like when SGDQ would be, right? And then they come with the dates and it's super early and I'm like, fuck. Because I was like, okay, if it's late June or early July, I'll be able to, because I get my vacation money and my tax return around the 20th of July. So that's like, I calculated how much I would get back. I get like 1,000 back in my tax returns ish, and then $2,600 for my vacation money. And I was like, dude, that would be perfect. And then, no. That's bad. But yeah, since it's so early, it doesn't work out. So I'm gonna look into it a bit though. But if I buy flights soon-ish, I can fly from Oslo to New York for like $250. And then like everything else I'd have to figure out. I'd love to go. I really want to. But like if the dates are if it ends up being like way too early, then you know, that's just how it be, right? Yeah. Spring games done quick. Which is...
你拿到钱了，布里斯克，滚吧！我的部队会接着处理。他们也该做些什么了。哎，念念不忘当英雄吗？他是你的了，慢慢享用。
我有说过要抢救吗？这个免费奉送。
I mean, my birthday is in April. Might be able to like persuade my grandma into helping me. Oh, this is not good. And I killed him, right? Well, rip. Oh well, that's how it be sometimes, I guess. I need to definitely need to practice this more. Now I guess I get to figure out how long this is. Yeah. Yeah, probably. But something like that. Like that, like almost instant game knowledge, I guess, is something that I'll get back the more I play it, right? So.
来，这份是你的。布里斯克，那具先锋级泰坦还在。这不是我的问题，马的。谁叫你合约里没加这一条？我还得去见其他的有钱人呢。在做什么？在搞什么？我的分析是投掷是唯一的办法。我能够将你扔过去，扔过去。
Or is the dialogue that was fastest? Or is the dialogue only faster when you're pre-charged? Might as well hit it, just like get it a part of my muscle memory. Come on, BT, can you be any slower?
心破坏社会的稳定性。
你说什么？
我们已炸毁它。我正传送运输船汇合坐标给你。
收到坐标，我们会过去。那你怎么过去？
相信我，我计算过了，我计算过。
最好是这样。我们在路上了，祝你们好运了。布里格斯，完毕。
BT，我们有办法脱身吗？
计算中。协议3：保护铁域。
你在做什么？
相信我。
I mean, I was definitely still slow in my PBs, or my derust PB, I guess. So still lots of time I can make up.
刚失去 BT 的讯号，只差一点。库珀，我在你的抬头显示上标好坐标，撤离点可能在空中，这边没有可着陆的地方。
而且如果我飞越这片狼藉，你最好准时出现在那里。
铁玉，快走！我在追踪你，继续前进。就要到了，快点，快点！库珀，快跳！
Lamura is a handsome ass lad.
Sick.
What the shit?
129.26. I mean,
快点，铁玉！巴克，快带我们离开这！
not far off my PB. So, time. I'm just happy it's a sub 90, at least. Definitely, definitely making progress. Yes, I want to update them. Save. Cool. Let's go. I'll beat you soon, Bytes. Soon. Okay. I think I'm gonna hop off for now, though. I am getting kind of tired and also very, very hungry, so I'm gonna go make some food, I think. I think I might stream again tomorrow. It honestly depends on how I'm feeling after work. If I am, I'll be doing more speedruns then. Might just might hop into like practicing like Sloan fight and stuff, and then just straight into runs. See if I can do multiple, because this was my only run of the day. So no, thank you for being here. It's a good time. It's a good time. Don't go anywhere though, because I am gonna raid my buddy Glint. Glint's a cutie. They're streaming right now. They're playing Breath of the Wild, part of their Zelda-thon. Speaking of Glint, next week, me and Glint, and I think a few others, are going to be doing like a Hollow Knight event where we're going to be learning any percent, basically in like 12 hours. An unofficial 12-hour challenge, I guess. So I'm excited for that. Also Saturday, more game dev stuff. I'm gonna be actually like beginning to implement it into Unreal and stuff then. That's gonna be fun. Super excited about that. If you haven't already, you should join my Discord. I always post there when I go live and stuff and things. I think that's pretty much it. Ignore the charging cable. Yeah. I will, if I can, I'll see y'all tomorrow. If not, maybe Thursday, but then it would have to be an earlier stream. But yeah. Peace. Bye.